Russia continues to target residential areas in the capital city Kiev. On your screen is a drone image of a shelled building. The entire building has been damaged and charred due to heavy shelling. Heavy shelling continues to wreak havoc in Kiev. On your screen are visuals of massive fire that broke out at a depot after Russia attacked residential area. Firefighters can be seen trying to extinguish the blaze from a safe distance due to the risk of projectile explosion. Fire rips through the main market in Kharkiv after bomb attack by Russian troops. The sky over the city is black with clouds of smoke from the burning buildings. However, firefighters can be seen trying to douse the fire. No casualties have been confirmed yet. Russia continues to rain missiles in capital city Kiev, including residential areas. At least one person was killed and 3 wounded after a missile hit a residential building in Kiev. Visuals on your screen show a woman crying right next to the body of her loved one. Shattering, numb and devastating. Ukraine's right-wing extremist forces Azov battalion released footage on Wednesday showing a tank marked Z being bombed by them. The video on your screen shows a tank coming under fire and a man is being seen escaping from the tank. The video is said to be from the eastern Ukrainian city of Mariupol. Russian airstrikes have devastated the Ukrainian city of Mariupol. The visuals on your screen show the aftermath of the Russian attacks. Damaged and destroyed buildings. The havoc is completely visible. According to Ukrainian media, 90% of buildings in Mariupol are destroyed. Russia continues to rain on the capital city of Kiev. The visuals on your screen show fumes coming out of the house. It can be seen kilometers away from the site. The visual is said to be from Kiev. One of the worst hit cities of Mariupol hit by bombardments and shellings. Drone footage captures queues of cars as civilians try to leave the besieged city of Mariupol in eastern Ukraine. Civilians continue to face destruction as Russia targets Ukrainians by bombing residential complexes. Visuals of horror on your screen. The occupier shelled a residential area of Vyshgorod city, resulting in buildings and vehicles gutted in fire. Several shops are also set ablaze. Smoke can be seen coming from shops and buildings.
Подола хата горить. Випічки нема, фори нема.
As crisis grows in war-torn Ukraine, need for humanitarian aid also increases. Yet, Ukrainians continue to stand on their toes, giving a tough fight back against the aggression, as residents in Kherson city of Ukraine refuse handouts given by Russian military personnel. The incident caught on camera shows residents not willing to accept relief aid from the Russian army. Support for Ukrainians fighting the Russian invasion grows across the world. Protesters in Paris staged a demonstration against the ongoing invasion by Russia by showing placards and posters voicing support to all Ukrainians. The situation in war-torn Ukraine continues to remain grim as innocent civilians become target of Russian attacks.
Nous voulons montrer l'importance de la solidarité.
The Ukraine-Russia war enters day 23, with Kiev reeling under Moscow's shelling. Ukrainian cities continue to be under attack by the ruthless Russian troops. From Kiev to Mariupol, Ukrainian cities are left bruised and battered. In Ukrainian capital Kiev, a building was seen in raging fire. Plumes of smoke continued to emerge for hours. While in Kharkiv, one of the largest markets in Eastern Europe, Barabashovo was set ablaze. A kindergarten school too was left in ruins after attack in Kharkiv. The Mariupol theatre turned shelter that was bombed by the Russian army can be seen in ruins. In Kherson, citizens refused to accept handouts from the occupiers. And in Vyshgorod, Ukrainian flag was removed from the public administration building. The Russian strikes in Chernihiv claimed 53 lives. Devastating images came from Kiev's Svyatoshinsky area, where sharp flames can be seen ravaging in the air.
Маріуполь, наш Харків, наш Чернігів, Київська область, Ізюм і всі інші наші міста-герої, яким дуже складно, дуже. Ми робимо все і робимо всі. Абсолютно. Наша армія, поліція, ДСНС, гуманітарні конвої, церква, увесь наш народ. Ми вас не залишимо, а їм не пробачимо. Ви будете вільні. Точно. Я знаю. Як всі ми на нашій землі. Слава усім нашим героям. Слава Україні!
After 3 weeks of waging war, Ukraine and Russia are finally on the negotiation table. After 4 rounds of inconclusive talks, the two nations have come down to a 15-point peace plan. Will the delegations from both the nations broker truce?
After 21 days of raging war, there is some hope for truce. Russia and Ukraine are finally in a mood to negotiate. After 4 inconclusive rounds of talks, the 5th one seemed to be a step in the direction of peace. Russia and Ukraine are now trying to chalk out a compromise formula, including neutrality status for Ukraine as one of the options. Under neutral status, Ukraine would become part of European Union but not NATO, like Austria and Sweden. Kyiv, however, has ruled out the Russian proposal. Ukraine wants a legally binding security pact signed by international partners. Ukrainian and Russian delegations have come up with the 15-point tentative peace plan. It lists the issue that needs to be resolved before a compromise. These include Ukraine declaring neutrality, limiting the Ukrainian armed forces, renouncing Kyiv's ambitions to join NATO, and prohibiting Ukraine from hosting foreign military bases in exchange of security. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has claimed the talks are heading in the right direction.
Це важливо. Складно, але важливо, тому що будь-яка війна завершується угодою. Зустрічі тривають. Як мені доповідають, позиції на переговорах звучать вже реалістичніше. Проте ще необхідний час, щоб рішення були в інтересах саме України.
While talks are going on, Russia's relentless bombing of Ukraine continues. The question everyone is asking now is, how soon can the two warring nations reach an agreement? Bureau Report, India Today.
Ukraine is bruised and battered. Russian missiles have left Kiev and other Ukrainian cities in ruins. The Ukrainian president has called Russia a terror state, while the US president labeled Putin a war criminal. Now, the big question is, with ICJ's ruling to stop the war, will Russian troops pay any heed to the verdict?
Ох ты, ёперный бан.
Till a day ago, this theatre in Mariupol was shelter to hundreds of people, including several children. Today, their fate is unknown. Bombed by Russian forces, the theatre is now a pile of rubble, with parents and children trapped inside. Continuous bombing by Russians has hampered the rescue efforts. Satellite pictures of the theatre taken before the attack showed a message, children, written on their joining grounds to tell Russians it was a civilian shelter. But it evidently did not stop them. Their advance in Ukraine delayed by days, Russian forces have taken to pounding civilian targets. Markets, makeshift shelters, residential buildings, parents queuing up to buy bread. Nothing and nobody seems to be safe anymore. It's ironic, the tanks and talks are moving parallelly. While the two countries claim to be making progress in negotiations, there is no breather in the battles being waged on the ground. This market in Kharkiv is among the many civilian establishments bombed by the invaders.
The Russian state has become an outspoken terrorist, and it's not ashamed, but it will be responsible for everything that without the recognition of Russia as a terrorist state.
Russia suffered a major setback at the International Court of Justice on Wednesday. The ICJ has ordered Russia to suspend all its military operations and ensure that no military units supported by Kremlin takes further steps in the war. The court also asked both the nations to refrain from any action that may lead to escalation. So far, Russia has ignored the verdict, and Ukraine's Western allies are fuming.
Did you ask me whether I would call? Oh, I think he is a war criminal. Will you be meeting with?
Ukraine is badly bruised, but is taking all the blows on the chin and fighting back. A quick resolution to the war will depend on how fast the two warring neighbors can agree on compromise. Bureau Report, India Today.
Vladimir Putin and the army that he has sent to invade Ukraine have been accused of not making a distinction between civilian targets and military ones. The bombing of hospitals and medical facilities cannot be passed off as mistakes, because in today's day and age of satellite mapping, it would be hard for Russian forces to not know where the hospitals of Ukraine were. The latest such attack was on Mariupol Hospital in a city that is surrounded by Russian forces and still holding out. Is that the reason why Russia, in fact, is bombing medical facilities? The United Nations has already said intentional and direct attacks on hospitals are war crimes. And the American president went on and made an off-the-cuff remark saying he agrees that Putin is a war criminal.
Asked me whether I would call. Oh, I think he is a war criminal.
There is a consensus building in the capitals of Western democracies that Vladimir Putin of Russia is a war criminal. And one of the main reasons for that is this. Vladimir Putin's army is leveling the cities of Ukraine, and the hospitals of the invaded country are not being spared. The Russian army invading Ukraine have been accused of not making a distinction between civilian targets and military ones. The UN has already said intentional and direct attacks on hospitals are war crimes. The attack on the hospital in Mariupol killed 3 civilians, including a child. The 9th of March bombing of the hospital was the 3rd recorded instance of Russian direct attack on hospitals in Ukraine since the invasion began on 24th of February. What the Russian army is doing in Ukraine is not new. According to Action on Armed Violence, AOAV, a London-based research charity, hospital attacks had been a consistent feature of Russia's air campaign in Syria. since Action on Armed Violence began recording the global casualties of explosive violence in 2011. They say they have recorded 12 incidents in which Russia has bombed hospitals. This photo has come to symbolize the Russian attack on Mariupol hospital. A pregnant woman lies wounded on a stretcher. According to the World Health Organization, this was one of the 43 attacks on healthcare workers, medical sites and facilities that WHO had documented in the Ukraine conflict. The pregnant woman evacuated from Mariupol hospital was rushed to a military hospital, where doctors tried to save her and her unborn child. The doctors performed an emergency cesarean section, but the baby showed no signs of life. One of the doctors attending to her said they tried to save the woman but failed. She died 30 minutes later. In the chaos of war, the woman's name was never recorded. Her body and the tiny body of her stillborn child were taken away by her family. Their identities unknown, their deaths, a further indictment of Vladimir Putin's army. The Office of UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, OHCHR, has verified 726 civilian deaths that included 52 children in Ukraine. The OHCHR has said that the real toll in Ukraine is actually much higher. Over 3 million people have fled to neighboring countries, and at least 1.9 million are internally displaced. Across the besieged country, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian civilians remain trapped. Men, women and children, as Russian bombs continue to erase them from life.
For nearly 24 days, India Today's team of reporters and video journalists Gaurav Sawant, Geeta Mohan, Shweta Singh, Pawan Kumar and Mohsin Khan were in war zone Ukraine. From shelling to missile attacks to air raids, India Today's team reported from the front lines. When the capital Kiev was under siege, Gaurav Sawant and his camera person Pawan were there. Here's what they saw.
Away from this area, we are being told to leave this area because it's not safe to be here. You can hear some blasts that are taking place in this area.
The bombs fell dangerously close. There was smell of explosives and fear in the air. But there was also the steely determination to fight, to defend Ukraine from Russian tanks and missiles.
So of course we are expecting enemies from some parts, and so of course they would like to make a circle around Kyiv, but so we are ready to meet him, and so our military forces they are very nice in protecting now, so they are firing all the techniques, all the tanks.
This is Irpin, and this is where a very fierce battle is currently taking.
India Today was on the ground for over a month. Before the conflict broke out on the February 24th, graduating scholars at the prestigious Taras Shevchenko University had taken a resolve to fight. We spoke to a number of budding lawyers graduating from the university.
I want it to be sorted out by diplomatics, by lawyers, as it is not legally for Russia to go in Ukraine and just ask for some territory or some resources. But if they go to us, we will take actions. I think that everyone will not just leave country and go to Russia.
There was a steel in their voice. They may or may not have agreed with their president on joining the NATO, but they wanted to take their own decisions, and if it meant taking to the trenches, they did.
Images on your television screen now tell you more about the military movement that's taking place towards the battle zone. Now, this is where one convoy after the other. We are on the high street here in Mariupol, and military convoy, one after the other, heading towards the front lines.
A Russian attack intensified and the rail track came in the line of fire. India Today team was stuck for over 13 hours, locked in a train.
कई घंटों से ये ट्रेन रेलवे स्टेशन पर ही है। 9 बजे ये ट्रेन खुलनी थी और अब कई घंटे हो गए हैं ये नहीं निकल रही।
With trains not moving, driving out of Mariupol amidst advancing Russian forces was the only way. India Today team came directly in the line of fire.
यहाँ पर कर्फ्यू है, हम लोग फिर भी सड़कों पर हैं, तो उन्होंने हमारे ऊपर हथियार तान के रखा है।
At another instance, the Ukrainian army put a gun to our head amidst fears of targeting of their checkpoints.
यहाँ बमबारी की भी आवाज गुप-गुप कर आ रही है।
Around the capital Kyiv, it was a story of destruction and ruin.
The broken bridge and broken lives. Now a desperate attempt being made to rescue senior citizens. Easier said than done. An effort is being made to rescue these people from this broken bridge. Now this place in the Bucha district in Irpin is directly in the line of Russian fire.
The suburbs of Kyiv were in ruins.
Ukrainian army is attempting to stop the advance of the Russian army, and look at the desperate measures. There is a train track. Goods trains have been parked in the middle of the road. This is a track that crosses this. Now, right now, vehicles can pass through this, but should the Russian advance be closed, and there are red lines at every flag and red flags being put. The moment those red lines are breached, this track will be closed.
Brewery had a similar tale to tell.
This is not a main blockade. This is a secondary blockade. And why so many tires here? This is important to know. These are here so that in case main blockade is breached there and Russian forces are advancing, they can be put to fire. And once they are put to fire, this road is denied to any convoy of Russian army coming towards Brewery and onwards to Kyiv.
And there were also soldiers who loved Bollywood.
What was the Hindi song that you were singing?
Jimmy, Jimmy, Acha.
Oh. Do you like that
Bollywood.
song? Yes.
Bollywood.
As the firing and shelling intensified, India Today met the governor and military commander of the Kyiv region, Oleksiy Kuleba, who scanned maps to plan multiple levels of resistance blocks to keep Russian forces away from Kyiv.
1 hour ago, we have a problem with gas. Because we have a damage from airplane, Russian rocket, and we make decision, and nearly 100 people will have no gas at all.
There was also an Indian-Ukrainian family of Kuldeep and Oksana Kumar, who despite 22 days of constant shelling refused to abandon their home and their city.
Please, what's your message? What would you want to tell your relatives, your friends, the family in Russia or the leadership in Russia?
Что ты хочешь говорить российский, которые наши там друзья есть или есть семьи, которые что хочешь говорить?
Не нужно никому войны. Не отпускайте своих детей на нашу землю. И пусть будет мир во всем мире.
The battle lines have now shrunk from the borders of the country to the borders of the city. Despite the talks and attempts at peace, both Russia and Ukraine appear to be gearing up for the next round of conflict. With Gaurav Sawant, Bureau Report, India Today.